The moment was supposed to be lighthearted, but when Joy Behar crossed the line, Denzel Washington didn't stay silent. He stood up and stormed off the live stage. What she said shook the entire room. In the unpredictable world of live television, where scripted moments often collide with raw, unfiltered reality, anything can happen. But what unfolded on the set of The View during an episode featuring Denzel Washington wasn't just a moment, it was a seismic event that shook the airwaves, sparked a cultural firestorm, and left an indelible mark on the landscape of daytime TV. This wasn't a mere disagreement or a fleeting, awkward exchange. It was a full-blown, jaw-dropping meltdown, one that played out in front of millions, uncensored, raw, and utterly unforgettable. The stage was set for what promised to be a routine episode of The View, the long-running talk show known for its lively debates, celebrity guests, and occasionally polarizing discussions. The panel, as always, was a mix of strong personalities: Whoopi Goldberg, the seasoned moderator; Sarah N., the relatable voice of reason; Sunny Hostin, the sharp legal mind; and Joy Behar, the brash, unfiltered comedian whose provocative style often stirred the pot. On this particular morning, the guest was none other than Denzel Washington, a titan of Hollywood, a two-time Academy Award winner, and a man revered not only for his craft but for his wisdom, dignity, and unshakable moral compass. Denzel was there to promote his latest film, The Weight of Truth, a gritty drama about a lawyer fighting for justice in a corrupt system, a role that seemed tailor-made for the actor's commanding presence. The episode began with the usual fanfare. The audience erupted in applause as Denzel walked out, his trademark charisma lighting up the studio. He wore a tailored navy suit, his smile warm but reserved, exuding the kind of gravitas that comes from decades of navigating fame with integrity. The hosts greeted him with enthusiasm, showering him with praise for his illustrious career. "Mr. Washington, it's an honor to have you back," Whoopi said, her voice carrying genuine admiration. "This new film, it's powerful. Tell us about it." Denzel leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped casually. "It's a story about standing up for what's right, even when the world's against you," he said. "It's about truth, justice, and the cost of both." His words were measured, thoughtful, drawing nods from the panel and murmurs of approval from the audience. The conversation flowed easily at first: stories from the set, reflections on his legacy, even a few lighthearted moments as Denzel shared a behind-the-scenes anecdote about improvising a key scene. The audience laughed. The mood was warm, celebratory, but anyone familiar with The View knows that the show thrives on pushing boundaries. It's a place where casual banter can pivot to heated debates in an instant, often steered by Joy Behar's knack for asking questions that cut to the bone. Joy, with her sharp wit and no-nonsense demeanor, has long been a polarizing figure, loved by some for her candor, criticized by others for crossing lines. On this day, she was in rare form, her eyes glinting with the kind of mischief that signals she's about to stir things up. As the discussion about Denzel's film wound down, Joy shifted gears. "So, Denzel," she began, her tone casual but pointed, "you're a man of faith, right? I mean, you've talked about it before, how your spirituality guides you. How does that fit into today's political climate?" The question landed like a pebble in a still pond, sending ripples through the studio. It was a loaded inquiry, one that invited Denzel to wade into the murky waters of politics and religion, topics that The View often uses to spark controversy. The audience leaned forward, sensing the shift. The other hosts exchanged glances, their smiles tightening ever so slightly. Denzel, ever the master of composure, didn't flinch. He tilted his head, considering the question, his eyes locked on Joy. "Faith is personal, Joy," he said, his voice steady and warm but with a hint of steel beneath. "It's not something I wear like a badge or use to make a statement. It's what grounds me, keeps me centered, especially in a world that's always trying to pull you in 100 directions." It was a classic Denzel response, thoughtful, authentic, and deflective enough to keep the conversation on safe ground. The audience clapped softly, appreciating his eloquence. But Joy wasn't satisfied. She leaned forward, her lips curling. into a smirk that suggested she was about to double down. "Some might say that kind of thinking is outdated," she said, her voice dripping with challenge. "Dangerous even in today's world." The air in the studio thickened. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the applause dying out. Whoopi's eyebrows shot up and Sunny Hostin's hand froze mid-gesture. Sarah Ann looked down at her notes as if hoping to disappear into them. Denzel's smile faded, his eyes narrowing slightly as he processed Joy's words. The camera zoomed in, capturing the subtle shift in his expression, a flicker of disbelief, followed by something colder, more resolute. Joy, undeterred, pressed on. "Let's be honest, Denzel," she said, her tone now openly confrontational. "Don't you think religious people like you, people who cling to those beliefs, are part of the problem? I mean, with all the division out there, isn't it time to move past that?" The studio fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. The weight of Joy's words hung in the air, heavy and provocative. The audience held its breath, waiting for Denzel's response. The other hosts sat frozen, their eyes darting between Denzel and Joy, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment play out. Denzel leaned forward. His gaze locked on Joy. For a moment he said nothing, letting the silence stretch to an almost unbearable degree. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but carried a chilling intensity. "That's out of line, Joy," he said. "You don't get to sit there and tell me what I believe is a problem. Not when I came here to talk about my work, my craft, my story," the audience murmured, a mix of shock and support. Joy, caught off guard, let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, come on, I'm just saying what people are thinking," she said, attempting to diffuse the tension with a wave of her hand. "It's a conversation, Denzel. Don't take it so personally." But Denzel wasn't buying it. His jaw tightened, and his eyes bore into hers. "Then maybe people need to start thinking better," he said, his voice low and deliberate. "Maybe people need to stop throwing stones at what they don't understand." The tension was now palpable, crackling, like static electricity. The studio felt like a pressure cooker, ready to explode. And then, without warning, Denzel made a move that no one saw coming. He stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I came here to talk about a film," he said, his voice steady but laced with quiet fury. "Not to be insulted for what I believe or who I am," the audience gasped audibly. Joy's mouth opened, then closed, as if she couldn't find the words. Denzel reached for his microphone, unclipped it with deliberate precision, and let it fall to the table with a soft thud. He turned to the audience, his expression a mix of resolve and disappointment. "Thank you for having me," he said, addressing the crowd directly. And then, without another word, he walked off the set. Live on air. The studio erupted into chaos. The audience buzzed with whispers and exclamations. Joy sat back, stunned, her face a mix of shock and defiance. Whoopi tried to regain control, stammering, we'll be right back," as Sarah and Sunny exchanged wide-eyed looks. The producers, caught completely off guard, scrambled to cut to an emergency commercial break. The screen faded to a detergent ad, but the damage was done. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Clips of Denzel's walkout spread like wildfire across social media platforms. On X, users posted snippets of the exchange with hashtags like #DenzelWalkout, #CancelTheView, and #respect over ratings trending worldwide. "Denzel shuts down The View," one post declared, racking up millions of views. "Joy Behar crosses the line again." Read another. A TikTok video of the moment, overlaid with dramatic music, garnered thousands of comments. "This is why Denzel is a legend. Joy got what she deserved. Respect to Denzel for walking away." The reaction wasn't limited to fans. Celebrities weighed in, amplifying the moment's cultural weight. Morgan Freeman posted on X, "When a man walks away with dignity, it speaks louder than shouting." Viola Davis shared a cryptic but pointed message: "Know your worth, always." Even conservative commentators, who often clash with the views, liberal leanings, seized the opportunity to praise Denzel's stand. "This is what standing up for yourself looks like," one wrote. "No yelling, no drama, just principle." 2 days later, The View returned to address the elephant in the room. Joy Behar took the lead, her tone defensive but measured. I want to address what happened with Denzel Washington, she said, reading from a prepared statement. It was never my intention to offend him. I was just asking questions, trying to have a real conversation. Sometimes people overreact, and that's all I'll say about it. The audience didn't clap. The response online was even less forgiving. Comment sections were flooded with criticism. You crossed a line, Joy. That wasn't journalism, that was an ambush. Denzel deserves a real apology, not this nonsense. Viewers felt Joy's remarks lacked accountability, and the backlash only grew louder. Some called for her to be fired, while others demanded a public apology to Denzel. The controversy became a lightning rod, exposing deeper tensions about respect, faith, and the role of media in polarizing discourse. Through it all, Denzel remained silent. He didn't post on social media, didn't grant interviews, didn't engage with the frenzy. His silence spoke volumes, reinforcing the image of a man who doesn't need to chase headlines to make a point. His actions on that stage, calm, resolute, and unapologetic, said everything he needed to say. This wasn't just another Hollywood scandal or a fleeting viral moment. It was a powerful statement about standing by one's principles in an era of soundbites and sensationalism. While The View thrives on controversy, and Joy Behar leans into her role as provocateur, Denzel Washington reminded the world that there's a line between debate and disrespect, and he wasn't afraid to draw it in a culture obsessed with noise. Where viral clips and hot takes often drown out substance, Denzel's walkout was a masterclass in quiet strength. It wasn't about shouting louder or scoring points. It was about dignity, conviction, and the courage to walk away when words fail. Sometimes the loudest message isn't the one screamed into a microphone. Sometimes it's the sound of footsteps leaving the stage.